Think you're going to live to 100 by taking NAD? Let's dive in. Does NAD decline with age? And the answer is yes. Its most significantly noted decline is in skin because of the ongoing ultraviolet exposure and then increased consumption due to the enzymes that are trying to repair the DNA damage that's caused by the sun. On the other hand, in the brain, the decline may be 10 to 30%. In the muscle, it really depends on your physical activity. The two popular supplements are NMN and NR. David Sinclair promoting NMN and Dr. Brenner, who's a pharmacist, promoting NR. While we can go on a debate comparing the two supplements, we have data supporting that both supplements actually do increase the intra-blood levels of NAD. Certainly subcutaneous NAD injections also increase the blood levels of NAD. But the question remains, does this increase in blood actually translate to intracellular or inside the cell NAD levels, which is where it's doing all the hard work? There's some data that suppose that NR is a little bit more lipophilic or fat-soluble molecule and may be transported inside the cell a little more efficiently, but the reality is that we really don't have a good study showing the comparison of these different various routes of administration to figure out which one is the most effective at raising the intracellular NAD. And that's difficult to measure. Here's why. Because it depends on the tissue that we're discussing. If you're looking at brain health, you have to look at intracellular levels of NAD inside the brain, which is a very difficult thing to measure. Similarly, if you're looking at muscle, you may need to do a muscle biopsy to figure this out. So therefore, that study is very, very challenging to do. So truly the way to assess their efficacy is to look at endpoints such as strength in older adults, cognitive ability in older adults, etc. Fortunately, we can answer that question. A 2025 meta-analysis of 10 randomized controlled trials showed that neither NMN nor NR was able to change anything related to strength, including gait speed or grip strength or overall muscle mass in older adults. Similarly, in 2025, high-dose NR and about 250 milligrams of NMN, those two were tested in two separate studies for cognitive benefits, did not find any cognitive benefits to those supplements. However, there's a clinical disconnect. When you talk to people taking these supplements or even injecting NAD, they report significant benefits in their cognitive performance, their alertness, their energy levels, and just overall feeling of well-being. Why is that disconnect existing? There are two possible explanations for this. Number one, the studies may just be too short. The grip strength study was only a 12-week study, and then the cognitive study was a 24-week study. It's possible that the effect of the supplementation may take a much longer time to show up. Just like cognitive decline happens over years, the cognitive benefit may also take years to show up. The second explanation would be the individual baseline level of NAD. So if you're someone that's noticing cognitive decline, it's possible that your NAD levels in the brain are lower than someone else, but that's not accounted for in these clinical trials. So therefore, if you restore NAD through the supplementation, you may see a benefit. So what I tell my patients is that, look, the dosing of NR at 300 milligrams, NMN, if we know the safe dosages and if you're sticking to safe dosages, there's no actual harm in trying them to see if there is a benefit for a condition where you are seeing a decline in your body. But what if you had a tissue where you can see the DNA damage, you can actually track the DNA damage, and you can actually track the benefit of NAD and its precursors in that tissue? That tissue is skin. In 2015, which is more than 10 years ago, there was a study in New England Journal of Medicine that showed significant decrease in non-melanoma skin cancers, both basal cell and squamous cell skin cancers, by nicotinamide supplementation. Nicotinamide is a small molecule, it's a form of vitamin B3, which ultimately turns into NAD intracellularly. And it was shown to significantly reduce skin cancers by 20%. Why is that relevant to longevity? Here's why. The same DNA damage that causes precancers and skin cancers is the same DNA damage that leads to aging skin cells and aging cells in general. So if we start to think about skin and the DNA damage that's caused by the ultraviolet radiation as an accelerated model of aging, things that reduce that DNA damage in the skin can potentially reduce DNA damage in other tissues. An important point on this study was that this was a 52-week trial compared to the other trials that are 12 weeks and 24 weeks. That just shows us that that is an important data point to consider when you're looking at NAD data. Moreover, the skin model of aging is an accelerated model. We are seeing significant DNA damage due to the consistent ultraviolet exposure in these older adults versus, the damage in muscle or the damage in the brain is much slower. So it actually might be that we are just missing the benefits of NR, NMN, and NAD supplementation in those populations because we're not running the studies longer. So after this long journey, let's talk about the facts. Number one, if you want to protect yourself against skin aging, we have excellent data in randomized controlled trials that nicotinamide or niacinamide, which is the same thing, 500 milligrams 2 times a day will significantly reduce the DNA damage that is caused by ultraviolet radiation, which is a huge promoter of skin aging. Number two, while we currently do not have human clinical trial data that supports cognitive benefits, muscle growth benefits, energy benefits of NAD, NR, and MN supplementation, we do have really good data that it does increase blood levels. However, based on the skin data, we know that those studies were perhaps too short. Number three, if you do choose to supplement, measuring your cognitive performance based on standardized instruments at baseline, looking at your gait speed, your grip strength, looking at your VO2 max. Those are some things you can get done at baseline with a functional health physician or your primary care physician. So then when you supplement, you can come back after a year or two and track the performance. And that would probably be the most efficient way as a community where we can understand the benefits of these molecules.